Hi, this is Chris Young. Welcome to episode 112 of Contemplating Life, Oscar edition. In our final Oscar episode, we cover the remaining 4 films nominated for Best Picture, and then we'll recap all of the winners. 3 of these 4 films were my favorite 3 of the season. The 4th one, while not my top pick, was a top choice among many reviewers whom I respect. So let's begin with that one. Train Dreams is the fictional story of Robert Grainer, played by Joel Edgerton. The film opens in the early 1900s, with Robert arriving in Idaho by train as a young orphan. It's unclear how or why he was sent there. He dropped out of school and wandered around until he found work as a lumberjack. His life begins to take purpose when he meets a young woman, Gladys Olding, played by Felicity Jones. They marry, build a log cabin along the Moy River, and have a daughter, Kate. Robert must travel throughout the summer months to find work logging, leaving his wife and infant child to fend for themselves. He's able to earn enough money to support them year-round, but is only home for a few months each year. While working on a construction project building a wooden railroad trestle, he witnesses a group of white men grab a Chinese worker and throw him off the bridge to his death. Throughout the rest of the film, Robert is haunted by nightmares of the incident, and he also imagines himself being hit by a train. Presumably these nightmares are the source of the film's title. Because it's difficult for Robert to be away so much of the year, they plan for him to work one more season. Then they'll use that income to build a sawmill and to begin farming so the family can stay together year-round. A horrible tragedy ruins those plans. The remainder of the film depicts Robert trying to recover from the tragedy, and it continues to tell his life story until his death from old age in the 1960s. The film gives a brutal and poignant portrait of life in the logging camps. The story moves slowly, but it's more about character and atmosphere than plot. The cinematography is spectacular, especially some beautifully lit scenes of the men sitting around campfires at night. And we encounter several memorable supporting characters along the way. There are excellent performances throughout. Edgerton received Golden Globe and Critics' Choice nominations for his performance. In addition to its Best Picture nomination, it was also nominated for cinematography, musical score, and adapted screenplay by director Kurt Bentley and Greg Kudar, based on a novella by Dennis Johnson. IMDb lists 175 nominations and 32 wins. I couldn't find budget or box office numbers for this Netflix film. It's still available for streaming on that platform. The film is slow-paced, but it runs only an hour 42 minutes, and there are quality performances and beautiful cinematography, as I mentioned. It's great filmmaking, and although I didn't feel it was a waste of my time, it wasn't exactly my cup of tea. I cannot recommend it, but don't let that stop you if it sounds interesting. Next, we have a pair of films about highly competitive sports figures who are driven to be the best in their field. Let's begin with Marty Supreme, starring Timothy Chalamet as Marty Hauser. He's a professional table tennis player and a hustler. The story is set in the 1950s and is inspired by the real-life table tennis champion, Marty Reisman. Marty is an egotistical, flamboyant character who believes he's the best of the world, and nothing's going to stop him from proving it. He works part-time at his uncle's shoe store, and in the opening scene, a young woman complains she's left her shoes in the store after purchasing new ones. He invites her to the back room to look for them. They obviously know one another, as they have passionate sex in the back room. We later learn she is Rachel Mitzer, a neighbor who's married to an abusive husband. and she gets pregnant with her encounter with Marty. Marty persuades a friend, Dion, and Dion's businessman father to create a line of specialty ping pong balls branded Marty Supreme. Marty is attempting to raise enough money to travel to England for the British Open Championship, and when his uncle won't pay him money he is owed, he raids the company vault for $700 to fund his trip to England. Using nothing but his wits as collateral, he transfers from the modest accommodations for the tournament players into the Ritz Hotel, where he lives a high life while competing in the tournament. At the hotel, he meets and seduces a retired American actress, Kay Stone, played by Gwyneth Paltrow. He also befriends her wealthy husband, Milton Rockwell. Rockwell is played by real-life businessman Kevin O'Leary, known for his appearances on the reality investment TV show Shark Tank. Marty easily advances through the early rounds of the tournament, defeating last year's champion, Bela Kletsky. Then he faces a new unknown opponent, a deaf Japanese player, Koto Endo. Endo has an unusual paddle and a unique way of holding it. Marty loses the championship match against Endo and makes a fool of himself when he has an emotional meltdown. He later learns he's been suspended by the sanctioning body for unsportsmanlike conduct. Marty and his friend Kletsky then tour Europe, performing in halftime shows for the Harlem Globetrotters. Rockwell then offers to sponsor Marty in a rematch against his Japanese nemesis, Endo, at the World Championships in Japan. However, Rockwell insists Marty must play an exhibition match before the tournament and throw the game to let Endo win. Marty refuses to take a dive. When he returns to New York, his uncle attempts to have him arrested for stealing money from the safe. He flees the police and connects with Rachel, who reveals to him she is pregnant with his child. She shows up with a black eye, which she says came from her abusive husband. And throughout the rest of the film, they engaged in a variety of harebrained schemes to try to raise enough money to get Marty to Japan. I really enjoyed the film and Chalamet's performance as this hard-luck character who's the victim of his own ambition. Odessa A'zion also creates a memorable character as Rachel. I thought the film's ending was a bit forced, but overall I think it deserves its Best Picture nomination. It has 8 other Oscar nominations, including Best Actor for Chalamet, Director, Cinematography, Editing, Casting, Original Screenplay, Production Design, and Costume Design. It was also nominated for 10 BAFTAs, 7 Critics' Choice Awards, including Best Actor for Chalamet, who also earned the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy. IMDb lists 187 nominations and 44 wins. With an estimated budget of $65 million, it earned $96 million in North America and just under $180 million worldwide. It's currently available for rental or purchase on Amazon and will be available on HBO Max in late April. Our next Best Picture nomination is also about a highly driven competitor. We're talking about F1, starring Brad Pitt as a race driver, Sonny Hayes. For the past 30 years, he's been wandering from team to team, competing in a variety of racing series, after a horrible crash at the F1 Spanish Grand Prix. He's approached by his friend and former F1 teammate, Ruben Cervantes, played by Javier Bardem. Bardem is the owner of a struggling F1 team called Apex GP. He recruits Sonny to join the team to try to get them at least one podium finish. He's also tasked with mentoring the other young driver on the team, a hotshot promising rookie named Joshua Pierce, played by Damson Idris. I have to admit I'm highly biased about racing movies. In episodes 65 through 69 of this podcast, I chronicled my history as a race fan, including my fandom of racing movies, such as the 1969 classic Winning, starring Paul Newman. This film could probably be called an updated version of that film, or at least a significant homage. Brad Pitt has the same star quality and sex appeal that Newman had in his day. As is also typical of this genre, the drivers routinely violate rules that would get them banned from the sport in the real world. But we don't care. We want a hotshot road competitor who will do anything to win. The real star of the film is the visuals. The filmmakers collaborated with Sony to create specialized onboard digital cameras that can pivot 180 degrees, giving us unprecedented realism. Brad Pitt and the other actors were actually driving race cars at speeds exceeding 180 miles per hour. They used Formula 2 cars that had been modified to look like Formula 1 cars. There were also extensive CGI digital effects used to reskin the cars with different paint schemes, and much of the footage was lifted from actual Formula 1 races. The production company followed the F1 circuit with extensive cooperation from serious promoters as well as other race teams. F1 driver Lewis Hamilton served as an executive producer and consultant to make the film as realistic as possible. Now, admittedly, the story isn't anything you haven't seen before, but it does have an engaging plot and well-drawn, though somewhat cliched, characters. For a race fan like me, it reaches a level of satisfaction just short of Avatar. I think it'll appeal to general audiences, the kind of which want to see a feel-good story about an underdog who succeeds. Think of it as Rocky on wheels at 180 miles an hour. I highly recommend it. If it ever comes back to the big screen, see it on the biggest screen you can find. It was nominated for Best Picture, Visual Effects, and Editing, and it won Best Sound. IMDb lists 139 nominations and 31 wins. It had an estimated budget of $200 million, with $30 million reportedly going to Brad Pitt for his biggest payday ever. It earned nearly $190 million in the U.S. and Canada, and $630 million worldwide. It's currently available for streaming on Apple TV. Finally, we come to my pick for Best Picture. Spoiler, the Academy didn't agree with me. Hamnet is the fictionalized account of William Shakespeare, his wife Anne Hathaway, and their son Hamnet. The story follows the basic facts of their lives, but it is not intended to be a historically accurate biography. Jessie Buckley earned a much-deserved Best Lead Actress Oscar for her portrayal of Mrs. Shakespeare, who in the film is called Agnes. This is very much her story. By the way, an opening graphic explains that the name Hamlet and Hamnet are used interchangeably. I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you that their son Hamnet dies of the bubonic plague at age 11. Much of the publicity of the film reveals this fact. The story begins when Will and Agnes meet, and he's immediately smitten with her. And when she gets pregnant, they are quickly married. She gives birth to a daughter, Suzanne. Agnes reports that early in her life she had a vision that she would die with her 2 children beside her. When she gets pregnant again, she's disturbed to discover she has twins. The first is Hamnet, followed by his twin sister, Judith, who is initially believed to be stillborn, but suddenly begins to breathe when placed in her mother's arms. Having 3 children breaks her prophecy about herself. With Judith always the weaker of the twins, Agnes presumes Judith is more likely to be lost to the plague. So the family does not follow Will to London as he pursues his career as a playwright, for fear that the children will contract the fatal disease. Now, as mentioned earlier, Hamnet does succumb to the plague, and the remainder of the film is the fallout of this tragedy. Agnes and Will have vastly different ways of processing the loss. The family is eventually moved to Stratford, where Will built the Globe Theatre. Even with the family living in the same city now, Will spends most of his time in a tiny apartment in the attic of the theatre, while his wife and children occupy the largest home in Stratford. In the climax of the movie, Agnes attends the premiere of Hamlet. It's the most dramatic sequence in the film, and perhaps in any film I have ever seen. It helps if you're familiar with a rough outline of Hamlet's story, but it might not be essential to seeing the film. Buckley very much deserves her win as Best Actress. She was my pick from the start. She also won a BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and SAG-AFTRA awards. I might have given Paul Mescal a Supporting Actor nomination for his portrayal of Will, instead of Delroy Lindo in Sinners or Benicio del Toro in One Battle After Another. Paul Mescal received nominations for BAFTA, Critics' Choice, and Golden Globe awards for the role. Emily Watson is memorable as Will's mother, Mary, and the children also turned in quality performances. In addition to Jessie Buckley's lead actress Oscar win, the film was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Casting, Best Musical Score, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Production Design, and Best Costume Design. It received 8 BAFTA nominations and won the BAFTA for Best British Film. It earned 8 Critics' Choice nominations and 6 Golden Globe nominations, with a win for Best Drama. IMDb reports 302 nominations and 96 wins. It had an estimated budget of $30 million and earned only $24 million in North America, but $102 million worldwide. It's currently available for streaming on Peacock TV and for rental or purchase on other digital platforms. So, let's recap. I'll give you my picks, and I'll tell you who actually won. Starting with Supporting Actress, my choice was Amy Madigan as the evil aunt in Weapons, and the Academy agrees. For Supporting Actor, I liked Sean Penn as Colonel Lockjaw in One Battle After Another, and the Academy agrees. For Lead Actress, we also agreed that Jessie Buckley was a clear winner in Hamnet. My choice for Lead Actor was Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon. The Academy picked Michael B. Jordan in Sinners. I still don't know if it was for his portrayal of Smoke or Stack. That was okay. Actually, I was fine with any of the nominees, except for Ragnar Mora in The Secret Agent. That role did nothing for me. In the director's chair, my choice was Chloe Zhao for Hamnet. If I had to bet, I might have picked Ryan Coogler for Sinners. But the Academy liked Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. For original screenplay, I loved Blue Moon, but the Academy picked Sinners. For adapted screenplay, I liked Hamnet, but the Academy picked One Battle After Another. Sentimental Value won Best Foreign Film. The only other nominated film I saw was The Secret Agent, and I definitely liked Sentimental Value much better. I didn't see any of the animated features, but the highly popular Netflix show K-Pop Demon Hunters took home the statue, as well as one for Best Original Song. A surprise move, there was a tie for Best Live-Action Short Subject. The presenter announced it was a tie, then he announced the first winner, and they came up to accept the award. Then he announced the second winner, and they were presented with their statue. Of course, no one ever heard of either of the films. Sinners received Best Score, which I have no opinion. It had some great music, so I guess so. F1 earned Best Sound, and I had no complaints. I was very disappointed that F1 was not nominated for cinematography. Sinners took the prize, and that's okay. I don't care much about production design, but I suppose Frankenstein deserved its win. It also took home the statue for costume design, makeup, and hairstyling. Again, no opinion. Normally I would be extremely happy that Avatar Fire and Ash was honored for visual effects. However, for me, the Avatar franchise is a category all its own. For more traditional visual effects movies, I was highly impressed by F1 and the Netflix film The Lost Bus, both of which I highly recommend. Check out The Lost Bus for sure. So, that wraps up our third annual look at the Oscar-nominated films. I'm not really sure where we're going in our next episode, so stay tuned. So as always, if you find this podcast educational, entertaining, enlightening, or even inspiring, consider sponsoring me on Patreon for just $5 per month. You get early access and other exclusive content. I'm not in this for the money, but every bit helps. As always, my deepest thanks to my financial supporters. That means more to me than you can possibly imagine. And even if you can't provide support, please post a link. I just want more people to hear my stories. The back episodes are all available, so check those out. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you thought of these films. I'll see you next time as we continue contemplating life. Until then, fly safe, everyone.